to all the dispossessed youth of Africa, for perpetuation of communion with ancestral spirits through the fight for African freedom, and in the firm faith that the dead, the living, and the unborn will unite to build the destroyed shrines. Selah. Hello and welcome, beloveds, to another episode of Wake Up Africa. My name is Dr. Mumbi Saraki. How you doing? How's everything going? I really do pray that you are well in all your ways and that you're moving into living life truly on your own terms. We really want to thank everyone that has subscribed to the channel. We appreciate, love you so much. Thanks to everyone that supports us on Patreon and sends us love donations through our PayPal account. We appreciate, love you so much, especially in these times, beloveds, and for enabling us to continue to bring the awakening message to our people. So much is happening right now. Don't fall for the sideshows, beloveds. Don't fall for the mega, distractions, because there's so much that you need to be doing that you can grab a hold of, that you can use to transform your life in the environment around you, but they would never let you know that. Now, we literally came off the press talking about how the Ethiopian government had just kicked out 7 United Nations officials and, after accusing them of meddling in internal affairs. This is over the whole unrest in the Tigray region, which definitely looks like it has a foreign hand, et cetera, et cetera. And, I think some of the people who were also banned were Doctors Without Borders and the Norwegian aid, something like that, who were accused of spreading false and misinformation. I'm telling you, beloveds, everybody, even the presidents at this point, have read, Confessions of an Economic Hitman. They know what's up. They know how this operates. But in a very unprecedented and kind of, bold, daring, and shocking move, the United Nations chief has come out and demanded that the government of Ethiopia provide evidence for the officials' expulsion. Now, this is out of line. And I think because a lot of people don't recognize what the United Nations are or aren't cognizant with why the United Nations was even put together, they may think this is okay. But the United Nations is basically a group of nations that is meant to serve the different countries and the agendas of the different countries. So it is the servant of the different countries. But I've been talking recently about how the New World Order government will be implemented under, the umbrella of the United Nations, the global nations run under one roof. And are we now seeing that because of the overreaching? Like, they really can't even question the sovereignty of a nation. Because even any UN official, any World Health Organization official is there under they're like the guest of the state, beloveds. But now we see a shift in this thing. And, and even I was reading this from Yahoo News, special shout out to my Patreon family in between, you know who you are. And it says, in a rare move, the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, lashed out on Wednesday at Ethiopia's explanation for recent expulsion of 7 UN officials, which the UN says violates its charter, demanding written proof from Addis Ababa of their alleged misconduct. Now, this happened after the UN Security Council held several meetings over their lack of access in Tigray. But I'm telling you, beloveds, when I look at this from like an eagle eyes perspective, it's not just about Tigray. It's about the fact that, Ethiopia is a rising mega power, and it's rising at the most inopportune of times, beloveds. And, and the minute Abiy Ahmed's government said, you know what, we're not going to listen to you guys, we're going to put the destiny of our people in our own hands, and we're going to build this mega dam that's going to change our destiny forever. It was like a declaration of war. And that's how we have to look at these things, beloveds. This shows you how politics is being played because, it's no secret. So much research has been done. So many allegations have been launched, which show that many of these international agencies actually come in the guise of helping the nation, but are actually part of the destabilizing elements. And, one thing that the reason they're doing this is because he actually fears that other conflict regions will follow suit and they will start kicking out the United Nations. Like you see, it's a big blow to their power, to their global perception of power. The fact that a sovereign nation can kick out UN officials is not a small thing, because it totally destabilizes their global dominion, which is just in people's minds. It's not even a real thing. But they have an office in every nation, and now they fear that if Ethiopia does this, then other nations will be like, yo, we'll start to scrutinize what their people are doing in these nations and follow suit. And this will see them lose a lot of power. So expect this story to get a lot of mileage in the foreign propaganda machines, because they want people thinking a certain way. And, he actually said, Ethiopian officials who took part in the UN Security Council meeting, they said if there's any written document provided by the UN government to any UN institution about any of the 7 members of the UN that were expelled, I would like to receive a copy of that document, because I have not had any knowledge of any of them. That's what Guterres said. But he's overreaching, beloveds, because the United Nations is like the servant of the 184 states or whatever. Or is it? Are we seeing a subtle, now, the gloves are off about, because it's, and this UN head also said that he had spoken to the Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed twice and asked him to send evidence that the officials had done what they'd done, and still had not gotten information. But he thinks he's on the level of a prime minister. He is the head of the UN. The UN ain't no president. And Africa is wising up, beloveds. The whole world is wising up. There's so much exposure right now. And the thing is, like, the UN really is the New World Order organization, like the government system, the one world government. It's everywhere. And it always makes sure people fall in line with the agenda of the people who donate most. Guess who those people are? I'm telling you, these are interesting times. Let's take a short break. We'll be right back. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, Africa. Welcome back, beloveds, to Wake Up Africa. My name is Dr. Mumbi Seraki. So in an unprecedented and overreaching move, the head of the United Nations has actually come out and demanded proof of why the UN officials were kicked out of Ethiopia. I did a story earlier where I talked about how the Ethiopian government had kicked out 7 UN officials, accusing them of internal meddling in the, ongoing quote unquote civil war or civil unrest in the Tigray region. And one of the reasons that he did this is because he actually fears that this may set a precedent in other countries and see many UN officials who are, behaving badly be kicked out of the country. But not even that, it taints. Even to have them kicked out, it taints the image of the United Nations, and it does chip away at their power. What is it about the small axe? If you're a big tree, we're a small axe coming to cut you down. That's literally what Ethiopia is doing, and will be joined by many other small axes. So they really do fear, the effect. And he said, the expulsion is an affront to the UN Security Council, the United Nations, and to all member states, and our shared humanitarian principles. That's what the U.S. ambassador said, stressing that the UN should be impartial and that there was no justification for Ethiopia's decision. So even as a sovereign country, beloveds, You can't even kick out people who are not in your sovereign interests without having the United Nations knickers in a bunch. So, how many of us are really free, beloveds? Where does the power of the state and the state through the people through the state, however you want to put it, where does that end and this overreaching hand of the West begin? And they've been talking sanctions against Ethiopia. They've been talking all these things because Ethiopia stood up and did what was best for them. But you see how now they're talking about, all nation states should be offended because these UN officials have been kicked out. And it's not like that. But that's the perception. And people don't recognize that organizations like the United Nations get their power because all these countries buy into them, and then all the citizens are under these umbrella. So it's like you're not even under the sovereign constitution of your country alone, but there's this overreaching umbrella that will try and demand, what you should do and try and tell you to go left if you as a nation want to go right. It ain't right. And they really are fearing like a snowball effect, the fact that other countries will take suit. And so are we witnessing a great shaking within the United Nations? And different countries have done it. Remember Burundi, the former president who was taken out, he had expelled, I think, WHO officials or something like that. There's different countries that have tried to do it. But you see, it's like they need eyes in that region, and these are their eyes. These are also the people who can influence things, influence narratives, get people riled up, maybe. That's how Ethiopia feels, you know? And it's funny that the US took this hard stance because they're really wanting to put sanctions. They have their own agenda, etc., etc. But China actually urged the international community to respect Ethiopia's sovereignty. Russian ambassador also said that Ethiopia is capable of solving its own problems. But it's like, and these two, thank God, have veto power. Not even one African nation has veto power. And veto power just means in the UN Security Council, like you can, if people want to if people want to bomb a nation, you can come and say, you can use your veto power and say no and stop the actions of the United Nations or the collective. So if China and Russia weren't standing up for Ethiopia right now, best believe there'd be much more going on. So it's almost like, there's so much going on, beloveds. We're almost back in the Cold War situation, but it's like there's so much simmering under the surface. Many of these big nations are actually preparing for some kind of World War III. But will they bring chaos to Africa through Ethiopia or to the Horn of Africa? Anyway, this is a story we're going to be watching very closely. Tuko pamoja.